You're listening to Wharton Business Daily
on Business Radio.
And hi, everybody, and welcome back to Wharton Business Daily and our look at the business of real estate. I'm Dan Loney. We continue on with a look at the state of the industry at this moment with executives from Century 21, Zillow, D.R. Horton, and Bankrate.com this hour. Plus, we'll also be talking with Wharton real estate professor Ben Keys to get his thoughts on the state of the real estate market, interest rates, mortgage rates, availability, and much more. And so we start out this hour looking at real estate, joined by Greg Sexton, who is Chief Operating Officer for Century 21. Greg, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and your audience.
Thank you. So I'll get into the real estate market in a second, but just from the perspective of the pandemic over the last 2 years and how your company has handled it and all your agents, how has that process gone over the last 2 years, do you think?
Yeah, I will tell you, Dan, what's interesting about the changes with the pandemic is we feel like some of those were obviously we had to move quickly to those changes, and we really didn't expect those to last a long time, to stick for a long time. However, we do think that going forward, some of those will stick, and I actually think they're great for the real estate industry. They're great for the consumer that's in the home buying and selling process. And because a lot of what we saw, I expect to continue. Things like work from home. Take a look at all those companies out there that had to suddenly overnight switch to their employees working from home, found out that, hey, morale is great, productivity didn't go down, and it's an opportunity for us to potentially continue this.
Yeah.
So that created a great real estate opportunity because some people's homes were not made to be work from home. They had children, they had family situations that just didn't really make for a good overall working environment, so they had to make adjustments or actually move to another home. So we saw a great opportunity there. Homeschooling, Dan, was another one that is now, actually took on a life because it had to, but we do think some of that's going to continue. Again, some homes were not conducive to that, creating a real estate opportunity. Other ones were, the demand for suburban living. We saw a lot of individuals that had always planned, especially from a millennial perspective, going to live in the big cities.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
They decided that, and my daughter was one of those. She was in her early 20s. She was going to live in New York City for at least a year. That was what she was going to do. When the pandemic hit, some lifestyle changes happened in her thought process, and I think a lot of people have done that. Therefore, there has been this move to the suburban desire, and we're seeing that as a real estate opportunity. And then the other one that we know of, Dan, that's out there is a lot of folks are moving to tax-friendly states.
Yeah.
And that's created a dynamic there as well. So definitely saw some changes that I think actually are going to stick. We'll see how long, but I think some of them may be permanent.
Let me ask you about one from kind of an operational standpoint from your perspective. We know that technology was playing a bigger role in the real estate market in general. And during this time of the pandemic, we really saw more reliance on the virtual tour of the house. Obviously, people could not, in many cases, get into a home to see it firsthand, so they had to rely on the virtual tour. And that became a real key component to be able to continue to move some homes over the last 2 years.
You're not kidding, Dan. And what's interesting about that is, from a real estate technology perspective, not just Century 21, but all companies, we had to shift quickly. We had to figure out how we continue to operate, how we continue to do the virtual tours, like you're saying, where we wanted to make sure that we still were able to meet the consumer's demands, especially when the consumer's demands were increasing when it came to home ownership. And so we definitely saw not just the virtual open houses and technology there that we had to develop, but virtual closings. And all of that what was incredible to me about the real estate industry is, and I think it's because we are a very, very resilient industry, is we shifted quickly. None of this was on people's radars from this technology perspective, but it was amazing how quickly we adjusted and made this situation available. And I will tell you that I think that technology is only going to increase, and we're going to see more and more of that. But it did take a lot of training of agents. One of the things that we spent a lot of time as we shifted quickly into this was, how do we train our agents to now handle the situation differently than they ever have before? But there is one thing I want to say about the technology. Technology is great. It is going to be very relevant going forward in our real estate industry, more so than we've ever seen before, both from an agent and a consumer perspective. But I still say that real estate is a relationship business. And when I talk to agents across the country, I really want them to still understand that, to me, the biggest asset that we bring to the consumer is being the market expert. A lot of times, Dan, I'll refer to it as be a trusted advisor. Technology's great, but this is the largest home purchase in somebody's life that they're going to make with their finances, and they want somebody they can build a relationship with and trust, that knows the market, can give them the proper guidance that they need. And I think that's what makes our business great. Technology's great, but we're a people business.
So what do you see then for this spring season with all these different dynamics at play, with mortgage rates going up and availability still being tight and obviously inflation playing a role? A lot of people saying maybe it's going to be a little bit of a different spring selling season than we're used to.
I do think that's true and very accurate. What I think it's going to be, though, is more of a back to a normalized market, if you will. We are still going to likely sell 6 million plus homes. That's an incredible amount of homes here in the U.S. And so we're still selling at a great rate of homes, but I think you're going to see that price possibly won't be just skyrocketing like it has. As you know, prices increased, quite dramatically over about 15% up from year over year.
Yeah.
So I think that some of that's going to normalize, which I actually love, Dan, because I think it's going to make housing more affordable for those, especially those first-time home buyers. I think the spring season will still be a typical spring season. It'll be up some, but there are things like interest rates that are going to play a role into possibly just kind of making it more normalized. But we also have to remember, when we start talking about interest rates, we're still at incredibly low rates. I mean, my wife and I, over our 30 years of buying properties, we'd love to have a 3.9 or a 4% rate on many of those. So
yeah.
I think we have to keep it all relevant. I will tell you something else that we're hearing a lot about, and I think we're going to continue to hear, is inflation. And what's going to be the impact on housing, especially in the spring market? Is inflation going to have an impact? Possibly going to have an impact, but I think that there's still one thing that's great for all of us that are in the real estate business. Real estate is still the best investment that somebody in their family can make, because it's a hard asset.
Yeah. And
real estate has just year over year has always been a good investment. So we have to be cognizant of those things that, yes, could impact the real estate industry, but I'm still really bullish on where we're going.
Greg Sexton is Chief Operating Officer for Century 21 joining us. I guess then the side of this industry that potentially does see the most impact is on the refi market, because if you haven't refied by now, chances are you're not going to do it at the moment, because, you probably, most of people got them done over the last couple of years when we were seeing rates down below 3%.
Yeah, you're not kidding. In fact, I think I saw recently where it was November, I guess, of 2020 that rates were like 2.7%. That was historical lows, and the refi market was going crazy. I think that's going to normalize as well. The interest rates are going to fluctuate back and forth. But as I said earlier, when we concentrate on how is this going to impact the housing market going forward, again, I don't think that it's going to have this huge negative impact, even for a first-time home buyer. When you think about this, Dan, a first-time home buyer, the opportunity to get into a home of their dreams at 4%. Let's just say that they go to 4%.
Yeah.
That's still incredibly low.
Yeah.
Because I can remember when I was trying to get in my first one, I was one of those lucky ones back when they were in the 18% range, and that was a totally different ballgame.
Greg, great to have you with us. Thanks very much for a few moments. All the best to you. Thank you, sir.
Hey, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. All the best.
Thank you. Greg Sexton, who is Chief Operating Officer for Century 21.